Hello everyone and welcome to the world's most famous rectangle. It's Murph, it's Collins, and welcome to the Monday Night Indy Open Top Split. From where else? It's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jacob, we've been at Indy for a month now, and we're starting to get down to the end of it. The official Indianapolis 500s are over. We had fixed last 2 weeks ago. The Open 500s were last weekend. Now we've got Indy Open. We'll end it with the iRacing INDYCAR Series. But tonight's another important step toward the final race, isn't it?
I mean, it's another race towards running out of races to run here at the world's most famous rectangle, as we kind of coined it a bit earlier. We've kind of seen what everybody's got at this point. The iRacing just today showed off that the IR18 is finally receiving a new set of updates alongside rain tires, which I know a lot of people are looking forward to. But, this is going to be kind of the last hurrah on the current iteration of our beloved IndyCar.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of teams and a lot of drivers that aren't necessarily from the big power teams that are really looking forward to the physics update. I can tell you that that some of the teams that have been on top, maybe they're not necessarily looking forward to it as much. Some of the guys that haven't been there, they get a chance to retool their setup. So it's kind of one last hurrah for a lot of the teams that you've seen up at the front. Speaking of teams that you've seen up front, the big teams are all here. Adam Blocker is representing Power Slide. You've got Hamilton Akabuezi and Kevin Burrell from Fiercely Ford. Brendan Lichtenberg, Team I5G, he's here. You've got Seb Alexander. He and Ty Keela from the IR Rogue Racing Alliance. And so the big teams are all represented here. You've got some newcomers, Frank Wynn, Richard Vasquez, Caleb Brashear. And as always good to see Uncle Robin Glakis. He's in the field. So we're going to have a good show. Right now, Alexander Russell is the top on the board. We have Adam Blocker with a black flag, actually. We'll get the grid up so that everybody can see it. I would show qualifying laps, Collins, but I think everybody that's watching us knows exactly what a lap around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway looks like.
Hit all the apexes, smoke your way all the way back out to the wall as smoothly as possible. That's about as textbook gets these days.
Yeah, and there's no secret about it. Right now, Nick Sudik, fastest guy in the digital rectangle, 230.612 miles an hour. Do want to just quickly show the weather. Track conditions are pretty much ideal. 83 degrees in the air, 114 on the track. We do have some wind that is different. It's coming out of the west, and so it's going to be blowing across turns 1 and 2. It's going to be blowing you out of 3 and into 4. That is coming from the west, it would be blowing your tail through 1 and 2. My fault. And it'd be blowing across the nose in 3 and 4. And that's not really a wind direction that we're accustomed to here, Jacob.
No, we've kind of seen it come from every other direction but that one, so it'll be interesting to see if that plays into maybe some of the people's setups that they've got going on, that they've maybe cooked up for other races throughout the week, that they've kind of had a bit better grip on in terms of weather and wind. Be interesting to see how that plays out.
For certain, sure. Got to be on top of your tools and on top of the tools and on the pole. Jason Brophy, 230.684 miles an hour. Nick Sudik is going to start to his outside in row 2. Alexander Russell, Adam Blocker, Brendan Lichtenberg, and the general Kevin Burrell, they're going to go from row 3. Frank Wynn, Kristen McCrelly, row 4. Ty Keela and Seb Alexander, as I would expect, they're going to start together and lock out row 5. In the 6th row, we're going to have Caleb Brashear and David Hinger, Nicholas Doucette and Logan Edwards. They're going to go from row 7. The 8th row is made up of Matt Hollybaugh and Hamilton Akabuezi. Richard Vasquez, Paul Brumershire, and Robin Glakis, just like Hamilton, did not set a time. And so Hamilton challenging himself again there, Jacob?
The old last to first, he loves passing cars, I think is what I've learned about Mr. Akabuezi over the course of the last couple weeks. So we'll see if he can charge his way through the field before the end of this one again.
We will indeed. 19 cars are set to take the grid. And there they are lining up right at the Yard of Bricks. One full pace lap for these drivers. We see everybody getting loaded in. And we're waiting on Trading Paints to do its magic thing. It's at about 60%. Some of them are in my cache. Some of them obviously are not. There you see the front row.
Yeah, I ripped rear wing out of the Conti set with 0 practice, and I have no idea how I didn't crash.
My apologies for breaking the fourth wall there, boys. I do not want to leave the in-game audio or the in-sim audio on. That can be disastrous, Collins.
Yeah, there may be a gamer word, and we don't need those here.
Yeah, no joke. We do have the paints up, though. There's row 1, Brophy and Sudik. Alexander Russell and Adam Blocker are going to make up row 2. Behind them, Brendan Lichtenberg and the General, Kevin Burrell. There you see Lichtenberg. The Navy camo i5G car, but there he is. Frank Wynn, of course, the Japan Candy Store. He's going to start next to Kristen McCrelly. The Rogue Racing entry of Ty Keela is going to go off next to Seb Alexander, and there's Seb. Kind of after all these years of racing against him with a white and orange car, it throws me to see it in silver or in black. Caleb Brashear, there he is. David Hinger. We also have Nicholas Doucette. He's going to be in the Kyle Larson special. There's Logan Edwards in the Luke Mansky machine. Matt Hollybaugh, his familiar All-American iRacers entry, Hamilton Akabuezi. There's Richard Vasquez in the Tony Stewart Menards car. Paul Brumershire, and finally Uncle Rob and Glakis. We'll get back to the front of this field. It's almost difficult for me to handicap this, Jacob, as we come to the green flag. Reason being is I've raced against a lot of these cars in the last couple of weeks here in an open setup format. They're all very equal, I think, in race trim.
Yeah, absolutely. As we get going here, a lot of guys may have a little bit of something for traffic, maybe a wider window to operate the tools on. They've got more options. But other than that, the cream will rise to the top.
It most certainly does, and the cream has already risen to the top. Jason Brophy is going to take off in the lead. Sudik and Alexander Russell, they're going to battle for second. Russell's going to come off best with that. Adam Blocker slots in to fourth place. Lichtenberg going to follow him in fifth. And already the swap starts up front. Russell wants the lead into 3.
Yeah, and that's something we kind of saw in the later stages of the 500s over the course of the weekend, particularly the open ones, as it'd be about a 2-car breakaway at the front of this field. We saw Phil Kraus and Alec Van de Sant definitely take advantage of that throughout the course of the iRacing broadcast, trying to build that gap from the rest of the field, make it a 2-horse race to the end.
We do indeed. Watching Jason Brophy and Alexander Russell, they have extended their lead already over Adam Blocker and Nick Sudik. And one of the things that we're going to talk about, it's an 80-lap race. You can't quite make this on one stop, but I would wager that the fuel save has already started for most of these drivers here.
Yeah, you would suspect it has. If they're going to commit to it, you have to kind of do it as early as possible. We saw situations in which people were able to get 36, even 37 laps of gas out of these IR18s out here at the Speedway. So if you can get the cautions to maybe fall your way, you might be able to get away with one pit stop. But it's going to be such a tight window to get that to fall your way. You'd have to expect a lot of yellow.
It is. I think the most I saw was Alex Van de Sant ran 38 laps. Watching Alexander Russell swap back to the front with Jason Brophy one more time. Alex Van de Sant went 38 laps. We saw most drivers be able to do 35 to 36 was the upper end. So to answer Doug South's question, yes, it's a 2-stopper, but I think if you get a couple of yellows, you're going to see somebody try to do it on one. Now the disadvantage to that, Jacob, is if you're the only guy that tries it, nobody is going to pass you. They're going to make you lead the race and run out of gas. So you're going to have multiple takers in order to make that possible. And the people that are doing that are not going to want to lead, which kind of makes it even worse. Everybody else, though, more or less single file. Watching the swap up front, Taikila just got by Nick Sudik. That's the next battle on the racetrack. Sudik has slid all the way back from a top 4 starting spot, and he now runs 8th, and that tells me he is under an extreme save. You see Akabuezi in the back. He's starting to come forward now. He's already up to 13th. Next up for Sudik on the hit parade, that's Seb Alexander.
Yeah, we kind of saw between Frank Nguyen, Ty Keela, and Seb Alexander a big kind of group of checkups, if you will. I think Ty Keela maybe got a little too deep coming into 3 and washed up just a little bit. Kind of banged wheels with Frank Nguyen, shot him backwards a bit. So it'll be interesting to see if over the course of this opening run here, if we can start getting guys to play a bit nicer with each other, maybe start working their way closer to the front.
We do, and we're on board with Nick Sudik, watching the telemetry, swapping back and forth between 4th and 5th gear. I don't know that he's not trying to make it, this on one stop. 226 was the trap speed there at the end of the front straight. That is much slower than I know those fiercely Ford cars are capable of going. Meanwhile, behind him, Hamilton Akabuezi is going to make the move. He's going to try to round up 2 for the price of 1, but he's got, is that Caleb Brashear to his inside?
Looks like he'll have Hanger coming into the corner, and then he's going to be chasing down
McCrelly.
Who's he got? Maccarelli in front of him.
Yeah, that's Christian McCrelly there. So Hamilton up to 11th. He's going to bid for the top 10 here. He's got teammate Nick Sudik ahead in 9th. And for the life of me, let's get on board with Hamilton and just kind of see what the difference in gear selection and speed is. I think Sudik is trying to play it coy and coast around here, making him one stop and win a race.
I mean, it's certainly a bold strategy, and he probably will be one of the few cars to attempt to pull it off. So you've got to be curious if he's the only car to try it, that he'll be the one that wins out on it. But it's also a big risk being the only car playing such a heavy conservation strategy like that. Yes,
it is. Do want to thank everybody that has joined us in the audience. Craig Segerman, unfortunately, Clindy had some other things to do tonight, so he is not here. We do have some Frankie Wynn fans in the house. Frank, he is running 6th in the Japan Candy Stand machine. And Doug South, longtime iRacing, that is old school iRacing IndyCar royalty fans. Doug South is the longtime statistician for our entire community and a fair driver in his own right. And so thank you so much for tuning this in, Doug. It's a pleasure to have you here. We are 8 laps into a scheduled 80 here at the world's greatest rectangle. Adam Blocker has joined this fight at the front. Brendan Lichtenberg Brendan's kind of separated himself from the general Kevin Burrell in 5th, but the fight is amongst the front 3. Blocker now wants in on this duel between Russell and Brophy.
Yeah, we've seen cars kind of lie in wait, being that third car in line, kind of waiting for the front 2 to sort themselves out. We saw in the closing stages coming to the checkered flag of the open race Saturday afternoon, where Phil Kraus bided his time, waited until about the last possible moment to make that pass on the outside of Jason Brophy and Robert Malechka to win that race by 7 thousandths of a second.
Yeah, there's 2 schools of thought here in Indianapolis, and these 3 are already trying to figure out what it's going to take. Do you want to be leading as Brophy is now? Do you want to be second where Alexander Russell sits? Do you want to be third if you're Adam Blocker? All of those strategies have won the Indianapolis 500 in iRacing over the last couple of weeks. I have been personally in the lead going into turn 3 and upside down in the north chute. So you don't always even get to the start finish line if you're up there in the top 3 either. Do want to thank our friends at Whiplash SimCams. I'm going to throw something up here that we don't get to see very often in Indianapolis. This is the fan cam. If you were watching this race from around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, this is what you'd see right from the top of the North Vista. Right straight down the backstretch. Watch them sweep through turn 3, Northeast Vista, across the north. Now you're in the Northwest Vista, where half the population of Ohio watches the race from. Down the main straight. Now you're amongst the Hoosier race fans in the paddock all the way down in that second level. These right here are the best seats in the entire facility. That's the B penthouse that you're seeing the view from there, over into the South Vista, Southeast Vista, and then you get the view from the infield here too. No, you don't. There used to be a camera. He had a camera for a while that was on the infield mound, Collins, and I always loved that one because I watched the race here for many years from that infield mound. Front three, still Russell, Brophy, and Blocker, just kind of chasing each other. I would tend to agree. Blocker and Brophy, I believe, are kind of content to let Russell lead this. Also, that slows the pace up, and it's gonna let Lichtenberg catch him. Those guys are all pretty good friends, and so I believe it might be possible that they're going to let Brendan catch up, and of course Kevin Brell's not too far back, and he would benefit from that as well. We've already had Nick Sudik in on the pit lane. Here is Sudik. He is a lap down, and so there was some other issues for that car, Jacob. He was in his pit box for 46 seconds.
Yeah, it's possible maybe he had some... Oh, he's coming down again.
Yeah, he's coming back to pit lane. He had to have had some damage or some sort of contact that would have forced him into the pit lane. But tough break for Nick Sudik because he's coming back down the pit road, and that's likely going to be night done for him. Meanwhile, the battle at the front still brews. Brophy and Blocker in second, the Killer Bees for the Power Slide team. They're following Alexander Russell, and I got to believe they're saving a ton of fuel right here.
Yeah, you got to figure with them kind of hanging just at the back of the draft window off of Russell that they're basically getting as much fuel economy as they can without losing it. Obviously, that kind of would make it harder to save fuel if they get out of that draft window. So they're basically just sitting at the end of it and creeping back in down the straights and then hanging back the rest of the corners.
Indeed. We'll take a look out of the left eyeball of Jason Brophy. The number 6 machine. There's Brophy. He's just very leisurely following Alexander Russell along. Cut back to the same view out of Adam Blocker. No attempt to make a move on the coming from a different direction, blowing directly across turn number 1.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the places where the car can get pretty light pretty quick. You know, we've seen a number of instances over the course of the weeks here of cars just getting a little too high up in the corner and then smacking the outside wall. And that, especially in a bigger group of field as we saw maybe a couple weeks ago, or even, I guess it was whenever Oval Fixed was here Tuesday night, we kind of saw a heavy fuel save race, and one car sliding up into the wall sets off a huge chain reaction of just everybody.
We've got caution on the speedway. Ty Keela dropping through the field. There's Ty. He is slow on the warm-up lane, and Ty Keela is going to be our first caution of the event. And we need to go figure out what happened to Ty, Mr. Collins. Here he is. He's running behind Frank Wynn, so he would have been in 7th place. He's going to go down and clip the grass, and that almost looks like some sort of an equipment or wheel failure, maybe a monitor or VR issue. Very unlike Ty to just drive into the grass like that. And then he's going to pull it to a stop. That indicates something went awry with his with his equipment there. Wouldn't you think there, Jacob?
Yeah, his screen seems to have cut out according to the in-sim comms, so it sounds like that was him just trying to get out of people's way because he couldn't see where he was going.
So that would do it. If your screen turns off in the middle of a sim race, you're not going to be able to see very much. So welcome caution here for pretty much everybody, I think. They're all going to come down. They're going to grab a full tank of fuel, and this makes it a straight up one more stop from here. It'll be a 60 lap deal once everybody gets into the pit lane. Sudik is going to come around and grab one of his laps back. He is 4 laps in arrears. Ty is going to make his pit stop at the back. And we're going to enjoy some pit exit. Do want to thank everybody from Whiplash SimCams. There's a satellite entry of Alexander Russell. Do want to thank everybody at Whiplash SimCams for their support, providing the cams and the views that we all see here. Russell's going to win the race off pit road, and so he'll go back to the lead. That's a great point, Doug. We're going to take a look at who was saving and who wasn't based off of pit time. So Alexander Russell, he was on in his box 8 seconds. Brophy 7.8. Same for Blocker. Lichtenberg 7.7. The general Kevin Burrell 8.2 seconds. 7.9 for Hamilton Akabuezi. 8.6 Frank Wynn. So that tells me he was running absolutely full rich. Seb Alexander 8.2 seconds. David Hinger 7.9 seconds, and Logan Edwards, he was definitely flat out 8.5 seconds. The longest on pit road was Nicholas Doucette, 9.2 seconds. So he had run much further than everybody else. That's nearly that's outside of a tire change. The tire change takes what, 7.8 to 8 seconds roughly? Wouldn't you say, Jacob?
It's about 7 and 8 roughly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where it is. That's kind of where it is. Matt Hollybaugh did jump some positions. He was in 8.1 seconds, so a slower, but not the slowest stop. He did jump Doucette, who was right in front of him, who had the longer pit stop. But that's going to be one of those things to kind of watch. Now, we're not really in a fuel save race anymore unless you are leading. So my setup here, our setup, Jacob, it would run, 28, 29 laps comfortably in the lead, but to get it to 30, you were gonna have to stretch. I would
Go ahead.
I would anticipate that this is going to be a battle, at least for this first run, to not lead this race. Would be my guess.
Yeah, we've kind of seen that play out a couple different times throughout the course of the weeks here, of having longer fuel runs turn into essentially a requirement, right? Because of just how you had to split the race up. You didn't want to be essentially the first car in at any point in time, so you were trying to stretch it as long as possible. So I think we'll definitely see a lot of guys trying to shuffle out of that lead car spot if they're trying to make it on their fuel number.
Yeah, and that's the thing here. So everybody but the leader is going to be saving. We're going to kind of keep an eye on Brophy, Blocker, Lichtenberg, Burrell. Those cars are all certainly Akabuezi in 6th. He's made his way up from the back to 6th. So heck of a job for Hamilton Akabuezi. Also big mover, Robin Glakis is up 5 spots. He didn't take time to start this thing. Poor Nick Sudik, he's 3 laps down in 19th. But we're going to kind of keep an eye and see exactly how hard Jason Brophy and crew behind Alexander Russell really try to run this thing. Green. There's the green flag. Racing will resume. We've got a bit of a ragged start in the back, but it appears as though they're all going to make it. They're 3 wide. Ty Keela to the bottom. He's got Doucette to his outside. Now he's going to drop under Robin Glakis. So the monitor must be back on, Jacob. Ty Keela wasting no time trying to get back to the front.
Yeah, he clearly could see those cars because he definitely was just putting it where they weren't and hoping to make a charge at it. We'll see if he can work his way back through the field, as he was running inside the top 10 before the mechanical issue.
He was indeed. No black flags on the start. Hamilton Akabuezi does get by the general Kevin Burrell. He will set his sights on former teammate Brendan Lichtenberg in 4th place. Meanwhile, Brophy is not passing Alexander Russell, and let's hop on board and see what we can see here from Jason Brophy. He's going to draft up right behind Russell. He's going to slingshot on past. Move Brophy to the lead. Put Alexander Russell back to 2nd. Blocker stays in 3rd. Lichtenberg stays in 4th.
I'm wondering, with maybe some of the races they've already had this week, if they've been able to determine that this swap actually saves enough gas to make their number still. We saw Van de Sant pull out 37, 38 some odd laps on a green run at some point during the course of the 500s the last week. So it's possible that they've got a little extra figured out in terms of being able to put a little more fuel in the car with that swap draft.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the swap draft might gain you. It might gain you an extra half a lap. It would not surprise me if Brophy and Alexander Russell, even though they're swapping, even though they're leading, they might be running it in fuel. They might be running it in a lean fuel map. So map 3, map 4, something like that. Their last lap, 41, call it 41.2. Their best lap is 41 dead. So that would tell me that they are definitely leaning the car out a little bit, trying to make it to that 30 lap mark. Doug South says he spies Ty Keelan may have tapped the turn 2 exit wall. There's Ty. We're going to get in tight on him, and we'll see if there's any damage or any marks to the right side of that automobile. Looks good to me, Collins.
That is one of those things we've seen people, though, hit that wall, and it's like damage in between the seam of the top and bottom of the side pod, so you can't really see it unless you're aimed like right on top of it. I think Rob, the 500 Friday night last weekend, had something similar happen where he was basically holding his car on to just outside the top 5 because of that side pod damage.
You can. The other thing is we've seen a lot, and I do mean a lot, of phantom net code here this week as well. I know in the 500s that I ran, the cars phasing into the wall and not actually hitting it was a rampant situation. I know that there were several guys that actually complained of that, and so it could be a situation like that. Yes, on the broadcast we are a little bit delayed, and we should be saved from most netcode issues, but it could have been something as simple as that. It could have been something as simple as that, where the system thinks that it hits, but it doesn't really hit. We are single file here, Collins. I think everybody is pretty content now to be where they're at and start saving the fuel. Lichtenberg has dropped off a little bit from Blocker, Brophy, and Russell, but not a huge amount. He's still right there. He's still, half a second away. So still well within the draft range. Akabwezi is not making any attempt to pass the i5G machine in front of him, and I think, Doug, that spread out nature that you're talking about, that's just simply because everybody's saving gas. Nobody wants to race right now. Everybody is just make it to lap 51, right, Collins?
Yeah, and it's something we noticed a lot more in the open races than we did the fixed ones, where people weren't quite as eager beaver to get on top of each other and make moves, even these fuel save situations. And I think a lot of that boils down to people kind of know what they've got and know where they can get it to work.
Yep.
So by the time that push comes to shove and, the last two dozen laps, they've got themselves in the spot they want to be in. Speaking
of knowing what they've got, these are some of the hottest conditions that we've seen so far. 84 on the track, 84 in the air, 129 degrees on the racing surface right now. That's perilously close. That's up there. Even in private Indy 500s, you don't see it get that hot. I think the hottest, I was in the top split Sunday. I don't think that I saw a temperature above 100. I think it briefly touched 124. But this is exceptionally warm. And so that could be playing into it as well. And I think too, a lot of these guys are really just kind of content to log laps and where they're at. We got a car hard in the wall. That's Ty Keelan in the back. He just came off a turn 2 and hard into the inside wall off a turn 2. Caution is on the speedway, and that is a big impact for Ty Keelan. And let's see what has befallen Ty. He's going to come off, and the way that impact look, I bet you he's going to smack this outside wall. There it is, and there she goes, Collins.
Yeah, it's about an incident that we've seen dozens of times over the course of the last couple weeks. You just get a little too low, a little too high, smack the outside wall, and by that point your car is as light as light can be and basically turns into a a feather flying down to the inside of the track, ready to smack that inside wall.
Yeah, and that's awfully hard too. We can watch from his onboard just how much he's struggling in these conditions to keep up. He's got, a half a second to the car in front of him there. He's going to go down into turn number 2, and this baby just doesn't want to turn. Look at his hands, Jacob, in relationship to where he is on the track. The car is just not turning. He's trying to get out of the gas. He's downshifting, but that is not going to work. And that car is toast.
Yeah, and that probably plays a bit into some of the discussion we've been having with the fuel save and people kind of stringing out like this, right? It's really hard to keep your car close up to others in the tow, especially if you're running something that's maybe a bit more trimmed out, operates better in a bit more cleaner air. And if your operating window in dirty air is tight, like you don't have a ton of options besides maybe lifting more, adjusting your line, like there's only so many things you can do before you're just losing time, and it's almost better for you to back away from that car to hit your fuel number and all the other things you're trying to get done out there.
It is indeed. We also have a split decision in terms of who's going to pit and who is not under this yellow. The top 6 did not pit. Brophy, Alexander, Hinger, Edwards, Brashear, and Matt Hollyball did not pit. Everybody else has come in for a new set of boots and some gas and some ethanol, methanol, shell fuel, however you want to say it. They've come in to top up the tanks and get some new shoes. With as hot as it is, and Doug asked about the weather, 129 is definitely going to be affecting the handling on the car. Wind is out of the west at 6. So it's going to be blowing as a tailwind into turn number 2. And yes, that would be pushing you toward the wall on exit. And so these drivers are really going to have to be Johnny on the spot with the tools. They're going to have to be really Johnny on the spot with the tools so that they don't hit the fence over there. That's a great point. I didn't think about that. Yes, everybody is going to have one more stop. Now, the advantage to the guys that stop, Jacob, is what?
Well, they're going to be able to run longer on this fuel run and potentially inherit some track position that way if the yellow falls their way, right? If it comes in where these front guys have to pit and then the yellow comes out afterwards and they're already in front of them, then they'll cycle back behind them potentially, but those guys that pit may also attempt to pit again to make their number better.
Yeah, they're all going to have to stop again at some point. Now, the drivers out front have been out for 10 laps of green flag running. It's roughly one. In iRacing, you're going to get 4 caution laps equal 1 green flag lap, essentially, based on how much you're able to save. And so, Brophy, Alexander et al., they're essentially going to have 11 laps on their tank. Look for them to stop in 19 more, which would put them somewhere lap 52, 53 would be my guess as to where they're going to stop. The other cars are going to be able to go to lap 65 or so. 62 to 65. Their final stops are going to be shorter. They're essentially going to come in and take tires and a very small amount of fuel. The cars that stayed out, though, Jacob, they're going to have to take a full tank of gas. And so they're going to be on pit road longer. You do not lose a lap. And you're right. If when they cycle out, they're going to cycle out in front. Caution comes out. They're essentially going to be ahead because there is no bones about it. The cars that just stopped are going to have to stop again. They're betting it goes green, and they can make a much shorter final stop.
Yeah, that's kind of the gamble you take when the cautions start falling this way, right? Is there's potential opportunity to make up track position the easy way through the pit lane, kind of on your fuel and tire strategy there. Or you can try to do it the hard way by driving through the field, and we'll just have to see how it pans out for these guys that have come in early here.
100%. Do want to point out to Doug, because he has asked one more time, the weather is dynamic, and so the wind is spinning and gusting in different places. Green flag is back out. No black flags on the restart. Brophy makes a break for it. Seb Alexander is second. David Hinger, a name that we have not called much today, he's going to line it up in third.
Seb's going to take that IAR entry to the inside of turn number 3 and take the lead here from Jason Brophy. We'll see if Brophy kind of tags back at him coming down the front stretch.
He is Seb Alexander back from a vacation in the service, leading in Indianapolis here in the Indy Open top split, coming to get lap 33 of 80. Jason Brophy is going to slingshot right back by, though, on the inside into turn 1. Now, these two are not teammates. They are not corporate teammates, but your friends are kind of where you find them right here. And Brophy knows that Indy Alliance machine behind him is a fast one. He's going to try to use it to draw himself away from the rest of the field here.
Yeah, you kind of got to just work with who's up there come past a point, right? You're trying to build a bit of a gap up to the rest of the field behind you because it is very, very difficult to make that gap up once it's built up. You know, aside from some critical mistakes maybe later in the run, it's pretty hard for you to lose that time. So the faster you can get it built up or the further ahead you can pull out, the easier it is to kind of walk away with these ones.
You do indeed. Now, here's an interesting one. Matt Hollybaugh is the last of the cars that stayed out. Adam Blocker is the first of the cars that came in. Blocker desperately wants past the number 4 machine. Hollybaugh does not want to give up that spot. They're going to come close together off of 2. Blocker is going to squeeze past on the outside, and that's going to open the door for Hamilton Akabuezi to sneak through. Hamilton's going to try the inside going into turn number 3. But we saw earlier, I kind of clicked back here a little bit earlier, we saw it. It is very difficult to get by a car that is determined to hold you back. Hollybaugh is starting to run the middle line now. That is the defensive line around these corners. It gets him a little bit of clean air on his wings from Blocker in front, but it also makes it very difficult, Russell and Akabuezi. It makes it very difficult for the car behind you to find any clean air. You can't go all the way up the road, Jacob. It's there's not much grip outside of that second lane.
No, there isn't, and that's kind of the tale of all this time is where you get kind of a pinch coming off the corners, coming through the chutes, because eventually the corner kind of runs out for you as it is. It is a rounded rectangle at the end of the day, so you got to come back to straight at some point. And by the time you get to that point in the high side of the corners, you start running out of real estate really, really quickly. So that car on the bottom will stall out on the entry. But if it can stay there long enough for the top car to get kind of nervous and have to back out of their position close to the wall, that's where that inside car can make up the time.
It is indeed. It continues to get hotter here. 127 on the track. Wind still stable at 5 miles an hour out of the west. Here's Hollybaugh, and he is trying desperately to stay in the draft of Adam Blocker and Caleb Brashear in front of him. Blocker is going to maneuver around the outside of Brashear. You had the best seat in the house for that one. Move Adam Blocker up one more spot. He's going to go to 5th. Brashear back to 6th. Hollybaugh needs to stay in that draft, though, in order to have a shot. Brashear is another one of those cars that stayed out, but Hollybaugh has all sorts of problems in the form of Hamilton Akabuezi looking at him for 7th.
Yeah, you've got to wonder how long Hollybaugh is able to hold on to this, especially as the track heats up and the tires start to fall away. It's going to be harder to hold the outside line through the corners, especially if he's not able to get that pull from the cars in front.
It is indeed. Akabuezi is going to slide down to the bottom. He's going to try to make the move on the All-American iRacer, but he can't quite do it. Not even a car as powerful as Hamilton's can make the inside move stick in the face of dirty air and the extreme track temperature here, Jacob. That's actually very surprising to me, especially given Hamilton's on new tires.
Yeah, and it's something you kind of see in a lot of tracks, right? As you have kind of a more dominant lane through the corners that tends to kind of work out as the course of the race goes on, where you can kind of hold cars off like this just by being in the right lane at the right time. You know, it doesn't necessarily matter just how fast your car is. If you've got a fiercely forward entry like Hamilton's here, where you know it's fast, it can lead this race. You know, if the car that you're trying to pass has just got their car put in the right spot, it doesn't matter how much faster it is because it's just not going to make time.
It's very true. And the thing about it is as well, this is racing almost, we're going to watch Hamilton Akabuezi. He's going to try to go to the outside. Can't make that move stick. This is racing almost like an Iowa would, where you see a car get to the bottom of the speedway. You think they have the preferred line. You think they're about ready to make the pass, and then the car on the outside is able to pinch them down, not let them have the corner exit, cannot get past. Alexander Russell now, he's going to move to the inside and see if he can't go past Hamilton Akabuezi. Just to reset, Hamilton very loose coming off of turn 3.
Yeah, it looks like Russell maybe slid up just a little bit more than he was expecting to and kind of tapped into the side of Hamilton there. Hamilton's able to hold onto it as we see Kevin Burrell, his teammate, come to pass him into turn 1 here. You gotta wonder if these guys are maybe getting a little bit desperate back here as they're kind of falling away from Hollabaugh here. Hollabaugh's been able to hold this back train up for long enough where they're maybe not making up what they wanted to make up by coming into pit there.
Yeah, that's very true. In order for this strategy to work, those cars need to be toward the front. They need to get the guys who stayed out long toward the back. Right now, that's not happened. Adam Blocker has been able to make forward progress. He is up to 5th. But everybody else, Hamilton, Akabuezi, Burrell, Russell, Lichtenberg, Wynn, they have not made up. Time. They're still kind of stuck right where they were. When to expect pit stops? Brophy's been out 23 laps. I would expect anytime between lap 60 and, anytime between lap 50 and 55 for Brophy, Alexander, Hinger, Edwards, Brashear, and Hollabaugh. Everybody else, I would expect somewhere between 60 and 65. Is what I would expect, Doug. You may see somebody like here's an example. You may see a KG racer, Brendan Lichtenberg, Robin Glakis is another one of those. You may see somebody stretch this really long and try to get gas only. I think that could be an interesting one, Jacob. You'd need what to make 10 laps here? About 6-7 gallons, call it?
Yeah, I want to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe a half gallon to 0.6 of a gallon a lap. So if you're going full bore anyway, so it's entirely possible if you stretch it long enough, you could get a really light tank and just run it full rip and not have to worry about too much. You know, we kind of saw some of those strategies play out late in the 500.
Russell got a piece of the fence coming off of turn 4. Brendan is going to drop to his inside. Lichtenberg is going to move on Russell, put Lichtenberg to 10th. Russell back to 11th, and you got to wonder if that didn't cause some damage to the number 3 machine. That is a pro license in that car, by the way. That satellite racing entry was in the Pro Series, and so good to see the attendance here from those drivers. Kevin Burrell, of course, also involved in that. Jason Brophy involved in that series as well. So was Brendan. So a good turnout from the pros in the community here at Indianapolis. We're looking at David Hinger. He has solidly maintained 3rd. Not enough to keep up with Seb and Jason Brophy. Logan Edwards has moved into 4th, and he's got Adam Blocker looking at him. But a solid effort for these guys to keep up here. They also critically have about 3.5. It's also 3.5 seconds from Brophy to Adam Blocker. And so that's a huge number for those cars as well. The other thing is they're going to have fresh tires and be able to come out and slingshot each other, at least for Alexander and Brophy. If they can get together and work together, they may be able to build a huge gap. That almost eliminates the advantage that the cars that stopped are going to have when it comes to that short pit stop at the end.
Yeah, there is that potential, and depending on how that cycles through, right, they may already be ahead of somebody like an Adam Blocker, and at that point, it's just how far can you run away from him, even with the shorter pit at the end. So it's kind of that game of cat and mouse. You gotta pull out the gap where you can make it, and then come to the end of the show, you gotta be able to work with the guys that are left to be able to maximize your strategy.
You do indeed. Watching from the nose of Jason Brophy, this is the most beautiful view in all of virtual Indianapolis. Brophy does not have anything in front of him, and if you take a look off the gearbox, you can hardly see what's behind him too. He's built a 1.2 second lead over Seb Alexander. Alexander is kind of in that same boat. There's the view off of the back of him looking for David Hinger. There's not much there. You can barely see Logan Edwards in 4th, and that very small speck back there. Why? That's going to be Adam Blocker. He is nearly 3 seconds behind Brophy, and we're waiting for pit stops to appear here, or pit stops to begin. I would anticipate those within the next 4 laps. Brophy really could stop any time here.
Yeah, you got to figure if he's made it this long, he could probably eke out a couple more on a final stint if he's going to try to stretch it. It's just how much does he want to stretch it at that point, and if that slight undercut's going to be worth it in the end. You got to wonder if maybe he's coordinating with some of the cars up near the front, like Alexander behind him, as to when they're going to try to come in and to maybe build up that swap you were talking about earlier. It's
Brophy's running it. He's not running it full chat. 41.466. His fastest lap 41.037. So that would tell me he's saving fuel. The weather continues to get hotter. It's now 130 degrees. Wind is shifted. It is basically a small breeze, but it's very much swirling. It can't decide where it wants to come from. Now to the northwest, but it's a very, very small puff of wind, just a couple of miles an hour. So that has changed, but the track is continuing to get warmer, Jacob, and that's only going to exacerbate the handling problems that these cars are feeling in traffic. And we haven't seen racing like this simply because the track, even in the official 500s, has never been this hot.
No, this is definitely the hottest we've seen the famous Yard of Bricks all year long. You got to wonder if maybe iRacing wanted to experiment a bit with different weather combinations as they kind of work their way towards the physics refresh. Maybe get an idea of where the car stands now and where it's going to kind of end up following those changes. You know, that they've had some instances in the past where this car's been very, very temperature sensitive over the course of time. So maybe they're trying to work out just where the operating window is at, especially with some of the new setup adjustments they'll have at their disposal come the next season here.
You know, one of the things that I would love to see is being able to make wing adjustments independent of side. So, you know, in the sim, we can only make wing adjustments across the entire plane. That's something I really hope that they update. We're just kind of looking back through the field. There's Matt Hollybaugh running in 7th. We saw Caleb Brashear in 6th, Adam Blocker 5th, Logan Edwards 4th. Hamilton Akabuezi we've talked about, but there's the Fiercely Ford machine. Kevin Burrell in the next Fiercely Ford machine is 9th. Brendan Lichtenberg. And I got to think Lichtenberg has played this very cool. If we're going to see somebody try the gas-only strategy, it's going to come from, I think it's going to come from this knot, the Akabuezi, Burrell, Lichtenberg knot of cars. Here's Frank Wynn. Alexander Russell, of course, he tapped the wall earlier hard. Robin Glakis might be another candidate to try an alternate strategy. He runs 13th. Nicholas Doucette, we haven't talked about hardly at all. He's in the Kyle Larson special in 14th. Richard Vasquez is 15th. Christian McCrelly is 16th. Paul Brumershine 17th, and Nick Sudik, poor Nick, he's out there circulating 18th, 3 laps off the pace. Taikila is no longer running, and he's no longer in the server. This man right here no longer has anybody around him. And Jason Brophy is coming in the pit lane. Seb Alexander is going to follow him. Slow her down, Brophy. Yeah. Hollybaugh as well.
Yeah, you've got to think that once they saw one car come in, the rest of them were going to follow because they want cars to be able to swap and work with.
Big lockup for Alexander Russell there in the back. He did get it slowed down in time, but that car almost came to grief. We're going to watch Jason Brophy. He is going to, as he makes his pit stop, we're going to see if we can't look at these cars off the pit exit. Alexander down and away, Brophy down and away. They're going to come out right together here. You could not have planned this any better if you're Jason Brophy and Seb Alexander. They're going to come out pretty close. The gap is going to be about 0.7 of a second. So Seb should be able to draft right up on the back of Jason Brophy. And these two are going to need to work together. Maybe not teammates, but your friends are where you find them right now. Jacob.
Yeah, you know, they've got quite the gap built up to the other cars that pitted with them even. You know, you have to kind of go back a whole nother set of corners almost just to get back to Hollybaugh and even Russell behind him. So, you know, that gap's going to be big for them, and depending on where the rest of this field cycles out, because they still have to come and at least get fuel at some point. They may have this thing in the bag before we even get to the last dozen laps.
You do indeed. Brophy now, he's going to be turning that Number 6 machine up as high as it can go. Try to get as far away as he can. Seb Alexander now 0.8 of a second behind Brophy. They, however, just to point out, they are 10 seconds clear of Adam Blocker. That is huge. So essentially, they made up 5 seconds on Blocker. Normally, you would come out about 5 seconds on that differential. Collins, they came out 10 seconds ahead.
Yeah, you got to wonder if it was just the timing of being out in the front where they didn't have to necessarily negotiate other cars pitting ahead of them at the same time, too. That maybe helps a bit with that.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of cars that are negotiating, Adam Blocker is negotiating the speedway as if it's a practice run. He has nobody around him in the lead right now. His last lap, 41.499. He has a 3.1 second advantage over Hamilton Akaboise. There you see it. But Blocker has a huge advantage in that he has cars out in front of him that are laps down. Now, I don't think he's in the draft envelope quite yet, but he is closing in on those cars. Do those help you or hurt you here, Jacob?
I think it entirely depends on what you're trying to do. As we've kind of discussed, it's been very hard for cars to follow each other, even remotely kind of close to each other, just given the overall fluctuation of the track, the operating window of the car, you know, all the various tools at your disposal. There's only so much you can do before you kind of have to just let push comes to shove and let the car in front of you kind of walk away a bit, even if it is slower traffic. You know, and if you're trying to maybe go for a mega fuel save, which I'm not sure at this point anybody would be,
no,
you know, that's when it may help the most, because then that slower car in front of you can kind of pace the whole field out, and you can kind of use them as that land
Here
for
comes
slaughter.
Blocker. Here comes Blocker. So he's going to abandon the long run and come in at lap 56, coming to get 57. That'll hand the lead to Hamilton Akaboise and Kevin Burrell. Blocker is going to pit by himself. Everybody else is going to stream on through. So the lead is now Akaboise, Burrell. That is the lapped car of Nicholas Doucette behind them. Third place is going to be held down by Brendan Lichtenberg, and there he is, just behind the 2 lap machines. That is Doucette and McCrelly there. He's got Frank Wynn behind him and Uncle Rob Unglakis. How about Rob? He is up to 5th. Give Rob his due. But I don't think there's anybody out here that wants to see a yellow right now. Lichtenberg is going to peel it into the pit lane.
No, you got to think at this point everybody kind of wants us to cycle through so that the converging strategies can come together. That's kind of what we all love to see in these longer races, right? Is where some guys maybe take a gamble, take a risk for the track position, and then come the end of it, you've got 2, 3, 4, however many differing strategies come work out when it comes to chow time.
Yeah, and speaking of different strategies and working out, there you see Seb Alexander going off the bottom of your screen. Now you're looking at Adam Blocker coming into the middle. Blocker winds up 2.5 seconds behind Seb Alexander, and he's going to have to try to get around the vehicle of David Hinger. Hinger is the 19 car in this race. Blocker is the number 2, if that tells you anything about the disparity in iRating. But they're right here together on the track. They're battling for what would be 8th on the racetrack, and you've got Logan Edwards behind them. Edwards is not a stranger to the front of these things. We've also got more takers on pit lane. Robin Glakis has come down. Hamilton Akaboise has come, and that's going to turn the lead right back over to Jason Brophy. Sadiq also on pit road. Everybody has now pitted, with the exception of this man right here. That's Paul Boomershine. He's been out 29 laps. And Collins, if you're Boomershine right here, I got to think you're just running it till it's dry and praying for a caution.
Yeah, it's about all you can do this deep into a run. You know, that's kind of the gamble, the throw of the dice, if you will, of trying to stay out as long as you possibly can here. You know, catch that yellow, get your free stop in, cycle back maybe in a bit better of a spot than you would coming under green.
You would indeed. But there's Boomershine. He's hanging out. We'll give him his due. Jacob, we'll give the man his TV time. There he is. He's leading at Indianapolis with 20 laps to go. But the final pit stop for Paul Boomershine in the 16 looms. Meanwhile, we can report that Jason Brophy is firmly ensconced in second. He's got about 1.3 seconds over Seb Alexander, and then it's another 1.9 back to Adam Blocker. And so those three look as though they pretty much have the top 3 locked down. Blocker has gotten past Hinger. Logan Edwards did not get past David Hinger. And then it's another 3 seconds back to Hamilton Akabuezi. And there is a wad of cars around Akabuezi. You've got Caleb Brashear, Matt Hollybaugh, Alexander Russell, and Brendan Lichtenberg all available. And we've got trouble down there. That's Logan Edwards. Logan, Alt F4 is out of the way. And that's going to be, is this apron bad or is this wall, Collins?
It's like maybe the car got unsettled coming a bit below the white line coming into 3 there, and it just gets loose, and he goes to the inside wall and wasn't as fortunate as we saw Phil Krause earlier last week be able to stay away from that wall, and he unfortunately loses his front wing and probably a tire and just decides to tow it.
Well, he got out of the car and he got it towed quickly. Therefore, no yellow on the speedway. Boomershine still leads it. Although he has come to pit road now, so that's going to hand the lead back to Jason Brophy. And here we go. This is the race. There's Brophy. Here's Alexander. And then behind Alexander is Adam Blocker. So that's the race to the lead, and that's the race for third right there. David Hinger is a fine fourth here. Great strong run for David Hinger, and he is well clear of Hamilton Akabuezi.
Yeah, you gotta give the man his props because he committed to this strategy here along with Alexander and Brophy, and is hanging on to it pretty good against some of the best cars and drivers on the service. So hats off to him.
Absolutely, give the man his credit. Pay that man his money, as John Malkovich would say, from the great movie. From the great movie Rounders. I gotta go watch that again, Collins. That's such an awesome movie. Hinger gets really light coming off of turn 2, saves the race car. Just bring it home, buddy. You've got 4 seconds over Hamilton Akabuezi in 5th. So great chance for a great run here for David Hinger. I don't think anybody on the speedway among these top 4 certainly wants to see a caution. None of them want to see this field get bunched back up just because they have a huge advantage. The battle, there's really not a battle with cars in contact here anywhere on the circuit, at least that I can see. What about you, Jacob?
Looks like about the closest thing we have is maybe 7th through 9th, where you've got Hollibaugh, Lichtenberg, and Burrell all within about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds of each other. But other than that, it seems that pretty much everybody else has kind of spaced it out a bit. You know, we've got Blocker chasing down Alexander
I
here
spoke
now,
too
though.
soon. Adam Blocker fires the jets in the power slide machine, and he'll go past Seb Alexander for second. Now it's up to Blocker to see if he can't chase down Jason Brophy for the win. Now, those are corporate teammates, but as we've seen, corporate teammates, schmeemates, when it comes to a checkered flag at Indianapolis, the battle is going to rage. Is it not, Collins?
Well, you play nice with your friends until it comes time to cash the check, and you send it.
You play nice with your friends?
Well, yeah, your friends, your corporate teammates, you know, whatever we're calling them. I mean, they gotta be nice to each other for a while, right?
Associates, right? What's rule number 1? Don't wreck your teammate. What's rule 2? See rule 1.
See rule 1.
Yeah, see rule 1. How many times does Gary tell us that every week?
At least twice.
At least, and usually he's yelling at either me or Clindy when he says it. Do wish Kyle Clinworth the best, by the way. Not in the broadcast booth, not on the racetrack tonight. He's got some other commitments, and so we'll give Clindy the night off. But I hope he's out there having fun. I think, Collins, you know more about his whereabouts, but let's just hope he's having a good time, right?
Yeah, I believe he's back visiting some friends and family out in the Illinois area. I believe he'll be in town for the 500 this coming weekend, so that's kind of his impetus for being in the Midwest area this week. So we'll hope to have a good race at the real rectangle come the end of the week here, and I hope everybody has a great Memorial Day weekend. Yeah,
that's one of the things that I've come to enjoy. This will be, I believe, my 31st Indianapolis 500. As a kid, it was always about the cars and the speed and the pomp and circumstance around the race. As I've gotten older, I've come to realize that coming to the Speedway is very much about seeing is very much about seeing your friends, and some of those friends you may only see once a year. And I know there is a huge contingent. Of course, Adam Blocker will be working in the Juncos pits, but I know there's a huge contingent of guys that meet up from the community, from the IndyCar community. It's all over. The Team Talent campground in the Coquelada is legendary. I won't be there until race day this year because of some other commitments with my daughter, but there are definitely refreshments scheduled all the way around the grounds on race day, and so that's something that I've come to appreciate a lot more. My dad was amazed last year when I got a phone call, when I got a call through Discord, and it was two of my Indy Alliance teammates. It was Tom and Matt, two guys that have been a little bit more on the inactive side of recent, but they're old school Indy Alliance drivers. They had called to say we're here, and turned around and saw a tall Swede and a short Englishman waving at me, and we enjoyed refreshments. So that's almost as much fun as the race is getting to see everybody. Watching Adam Blocker, he has chased down Jason Brophy to within 0.2 of a second. They have left Seb Alexander. He is out of draft range and fading fast. These two cars, 0.2 of a second a lap quicker. And now we're going to start seeing who's got what between these two cars. The front four are well clear of Akabuezi. Hamilton still 3.7 seconds back of David Hinger. And Seb Alexander has 2.5 seconds to get to Hinger as well. And so the front three pretty firmly in control of their own destiny, but these guys are racing like it's the last lap out here.
Well, you'd have to suspect about the biggest difference maybe between these two cars is maybe tweaks that they found in the last couple weeks. Maybe, right? Like maybe they've made some adjustments over the course of the last week for the Indy setup. But other than that, it's going to be the gray matter between the ears for the two drivers at the front of this field.
Now, I've learned that guys don't automatically, just because it's same team, don't automatically have the same setup. So different guys like different things. I know that, for example, Seb and Jesper do not like the same thing. I tend to like my car a little bit in between them. And so they may have the same baseline, but things like rear springs especially, those may be a little bit different based upon how the guys like the things to feel. Same with camber and caster, same with steering box. Everybody is a little bit different. And so it's, it would be interesting to me almost as a in the interest of science to see what the differences between the two cars are. Not because they're not both fast, but just to see, Jacob, how differently they like the cars.
Well, some of that may be where they feel like they can gain the most time or feel the most comfortable through the corners and stuff too, right? Is you've got a guy who maybe wants to make later apexes, wants a smoother turn-in experience, and maybe not something that's quite as edgy. They talk about it on the Formula One grid all the time of how they kind of cater the car to one of the two drivers, and that's where the focus of development goes, is to try to push it to as fast as that one guy wants it. The story of the last half decade or so has kind of been Verstappen and the quest for more twitch, if you will, to get that car pointed faster, and all the more edgy is kind of the verbiage of the day with that one. So it's definitely a driver preference thing. As much as there's only so many ways to make the car go fast, you still gotta be able to drive it.
You do indeed. Adam Blocker had pulled right up on the back of Jason Brophy, and just like that, I think the fire has gone out of the stones. It is now 134 degrees. The wind is no longer going to be a factor. It's just a puff out of the southwest. But 135 degrees on the track. Blocker got there, spent a couple of laps in the direct tow of Jason Brophy, and now he has fallen nearly a second behind the pace. The question from AJ Pritchett is, have we checked everybody's attenuator? We have not. I'm going to leave that to people a lot more professional than me. I just broadcast these things. Logan Edwards checks in. The things he would like to say about this place would get him banned. I know he's had a rough couple of weeks, and so Logan, you just got to keep trying. We're coming to get 6 laps to go here at Indianapolis in the Indy Open Top Split. It is a very strung out affair. Jason Brophy leads it. Adam Blocker second. The 2 power slide cars, the class of the field. Seb Alexander is holding down third for Indy Alliance. David Hinger, Hamilton Akabuezi are your top 5. And there's not really much action. The closest cars right here are these. Brendan Lichtenberg is up the attenuator, or up the tailpipes, as Keith Jackson would say, of Kevin Burrell. These are the only 2 cars on the circuit that are within a second of each other.
Yeah, and that gap may be slowly increasing, as I believe Burrell just recently worked his way past Lichtenberg. So you got to wonder if maybe Lichtenberg is starting to have his car fade just that little bit. Maybe he went for that fuel-only stop and has a bit older tires on his machine still, and they're starting to show their age.
Yeah, he's been 1 lap. He was in 1 lap sooner than the general Kevin Burrell. The last time through, Lichtenberg was a touch quicker, and see, this is the thing, we don't know. We don't know if the i5G setup is better in hot weather than Brendan is better than the Fiercely Forward one. It's kind of hard to judge because we don't know what's on the cars. Somebody like Logan Edwards might have had a setup that's great when it's 110 degrees, but once it gets to a certain point, and we've learned that, once it gets to a certain point, the car is just no longer drivable.
Yeah, I know. Kind of talking over with Seb, Jesper, and Kyle that they had kind of gone for, we wanted as toaster hot as possible out there because that was kind of what they had worked around, is thinking that the track was going to be pretty hot, and that's probably why you see Seb hanging up inside the podium here come the end of this race, is they were really focused on, if it came to this higher track temp, that they were going to have something good come the end here.
Yeah, I mean, that car, I drove the car that Seb is on right now on Sunday. It was immaculate in the hotter conditions. Like I said, our lobby got up to 124. The hotter it got, the faster our car went. And the thing is, you can make a hot car fast for cooler conditions. Lichtenberg, he just is flirting now with the walls, trying to get close enough to make a move on the general Kevin Burrell for that 7th spot. Lichtenberg's got it hung out, but I think he's used up the stones as well.
Yeah, and it's just so hard to build up that run, make it by the cars in front of you, especially as the tires kind of age and the track starts to fall away a little bit. You see as he kind of wiggles towards that turn 2 wall on exit there. You know, it gets harder and harder, and you kind of got to rest on your laurels a little bit and get it to the finish past a point.
Yeah, and you know, Doug makes a good point too with the weather. You know, this can be kind of a little bit disinteresting sometimes from a spectator point of view, but we do need different conditions. If it's the same every time we come here, you know, it's just going to be one driver, one team's going to hit on the setup, and they're going to run away with everything. Lichtenberg got a piece of the wall there. I think he has finally run completely out of grip, running in the wake of Kevin Burrell.
You know, hats off to Brendan for trying as hard as he could to try to make another pass by Kevin here. As you know, it's just as easy to, when you get passed by a car, to kind of just give it up and let him run away with it. But the fact that he was still willing to fight for it, even with his car as on edge as it seems to be, you know, it commends him greatly as a driver.
Yeah, absolutely. Hats off to Brendan and his many fans that are watching both on his stream. You can catch him, Brendan Hyperstar, on Twitch. And I'm sure that his fans are following along in the stream and on the broadcast. It's all Jason Brophy, though. He's got the white flag from Barney. Pretty soon he's going to have the checker, and it's going to be a power slide 1-2 here at Indianapolis in the Indy Open Top Split. Here it comes off of turn 4. There's Barney with the white. There's the checkered. Jason Brophy, Adam Blocker, your front 2. Seb Alexander will cross the line 3rd. David Hinger, a fine 4th. And there's Hamilton Akabuezi to round out your top 5. And so for tonight from Indianapolis, Jason Brophy, Doug is right. He made it look awfully, awfully easy. Brophy's going to bring home the flag. Adam Blocker second, 1.2 seconds in a rear. Seb Alexander, he's going to come home third. David Hinger is fourth. Hamilton Akaboise is fifth. Caleb Brashear, Kevin Burrell, Brendan Lichtenberg, Matt Hollyvon, Alexander Russell, your early leader. He's going to come home sixth. 10th, rather. Excuse me, my goodness. Frank Wynn is 11th. Nicholas Doucette, 12th. Christian McCrawley, 13th. Paul Bomershire, 14th. Richard Vasquez is going to be your final runner in 15th. Nick Sudik, Robin Glakus, Logan Edwards, Ty Keela. They are going to round out the starting 19. They're going to round out the starting 19. We're going to get some replays queued up, and we're going to see if we can't find some drivers to talk to, Jacob. All right, who do we got? We've got Adam Blocker. We've got Jason Brophy. Let's give it just a minute. Seb Alexander would be the bottom step of the podium, and so we'll see if Seb's going to head over here. While we wait on Seb, let's see if we can't grab Adam Blocker. Adam, thank you so much for your patience and your time tonight. You've got Mark and Jacob Collins in the P1 broadcasting booth. How hot was that track, my friend?
It's probably the hottest track I've ever driven at Indy. It was crazy. I mean, that's why I thought tires were going to be good. But then I just couldn't make enough spots on the initial restart. And then, nobody could pass anybody after a while. And then, I thought the overcut was going to work because I thought I'd be able to at least tow up to guys after they pitted. And then I couldn't because my tires were like trash. So then I pitted and I was able to catch Brophy. But then once the second I got there, I just didn't have any tires left, right when I got there. So,
no, gotcha for sure. Jacob, what do you have for Mr. Blocker this evening?
We kind of saw the wind and the temperature shifting around quite a bit during the course of the race. What did you feel like was the biggest help in terms of navigating the car through the changing track conditions, especially as the track temp kind of picked up really quickly, really over the course of the race?
There wasn't really much help. Turn one, when there was a tailwind to turn one, I almost died there 10 times because, just even a second back from Brophy at the end, I was struggling to do that, and that's kind of ridiculous. I've never felt that at Indy before. It was just, and I know the power slide setup's really good, so I can't even imagine driving a setup that wasn't ours. It had to be ridiculously hard. So
for sure, I've got the graphic up. Even after the race, 132 degrees on the track, 84 in the air. I think it got as high as 135 was the absolute apex of the temperature, although I'm sure you'll be able to go back and look at the telemetry and find that. But it was hot. I was kind of chuckling. I saw a Facebook reel earlier of the legendary stock car owner Junior Johnson standing on a block of ice, and if it was 135 on the track in Indianapolis, I might choose to sit on a block of ice in my seat on Sunday. So let's hope it's not that hot at the real race, especially not for you guys standing down on the pit lane in a fire suit. But Adam, thank you so much for joining us, friends, family, sponsors, shout-outs. The floor is yours, my man. You've earned it.
Yeah, I just want to thank y'all for calling the race and supporting the community, and thank Powerslide for all the work. And yeah, it was 138 on Fast Friday in real life, and I know we had one set of tires that basically was done after 2 laps in qualifying, boosted that track temp. So
is it one of those deals? You remember the old Formula One videos where they're showing the guys in Brazil and they're pouring the ice trays on the tires? You guys do that, or is there any way you can keep them cool, or is it just they're going to melt sitting there?
You're really allowed to do so. But thankfully the race looks like it's going to be pretty calm weather, 70 or 60s even, so looks very good. So looking forward to it.
Very good. Well, good luck on Sunday, and cheers to you guys for all you've accomplished this month. Bring home a good result, and I'm sure we'll see you around when we get a chance to see you around. I know it's your busy time of year, so good luck, my man.
Yep, see you sometime.
Yes, sir. That's Adam Blocker. He is going to run second tonight. He is off to engineer for the Juncos Racing team on Sunday in the Real 500. We're going to get him out, and we'll swap him out for third place runner Seb Alexander. Seb, you made it to second. You were following Brophy, and then what? Was it so hot that the tires just gave up, and you were forced to back off and kind of let Blocker go, or was the power slide car just a little bit faster? Walk us through that battle.
I mean, I think it's a bit of both. I think that might be the hottest session I've ever seen on iRacing.
Indeed.
But I also feel like I did something to my car, like right before the race started. I just felt it immediately on green, like, oh, something's off. This doesn't feel right. So the whole race was pretty much a struggle. So once after that stop when Brophy and I stayed out, I was trying as hard as I could. But I mean, the car and the temps, and like, that was all I had, all she had. So couldn't really do much when Blocker came up.
I'll tell you what, you gave it a heck of a ride. By the way, the apex of the temperature that we saw was 135 on the track. So Blocker said it was as hot as he had ever seen it in the sim. That's as hot as I can think of it having ever been. What are your thoughts on 135 degrees track temperature?
Yeah, like I said, it's the hottest that I've ever seen. So that kind of complicates things. It was fun. I really enjoyed the call to stay out. So, and obviously it paid off. So I'll take that with me, and forget about the rest. Try to figure out what the hell happened to my car. I mean, some of it's gonna be in the temps, but not all of it. I felt it even on lap 1.
Yeah, very good. Jacob, what do you have for third place Sebastian Alexander this evening?
You know, obviously with the track temp and the wind being where it was, we were kind of getting people blown across 1 and 2. You know, did you feel like that there was any big changes you had to make to how you were approaching that part of the track, especially with just that wind kind of being in a spot that we're not used to seeing it here at the Speedway?
Yeah, I mean, I had to lift a tiny little bit even in clean air. So, I mean, yeah, and every time through, even in traffic, it was hard.
Well, I'll tell you what, my man. Thank you so much for coming and enjoying the top split with us. It's good to have you back as always. Friends, family, sponsors, shout outs. The floor is yours, my friend.
All my teammates at IAR as usual, but also the iRacing crew for the update.
Yes,
the info has been dropped, so I'm gonna shout out them. Can't wait to dig into that. So it's gonna be fun.
Yes, indeed, Seb. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the booth. Heck of a run tonight. Go celebrate, my man, and we'll catch you. I'm sure I'll talk to you at some point in the next couple of days, right?
For sure. Have a good one, guys.
Yes, sir. That is Seb Alexander. He is third on the evening, and at long last, we're gonna bring up tonight's winner, Jason Brophy. The power slide machine comes home the winner. We had Doug South in the chat. He said he made it look easy. Was it as easy as it looked, Brophy, or was it harder? We know the weather was a bit warm.
That was harder than driving our Q set in the Q.
Ooh.
Like driving just flat out. The car was, especially at the end. I don't want to say like our car's good. Don't get me wrong, but just the track with how hot it was, you're just sliding. Like it's just greasy. There was no grip. And so there were a couple times like 7 to go, 8 to go. I almost hit the wall out of 1 on my own. Ooh. Because trying to figure out where to put the weight jacker, I needed to run less because I was sliding too much. But then suddenly you either get a little bit extra wind in 1 or whatever. And I darn near plowed the wall down out of 1 in clean air on my own. You know, I mean, it's what when you see track temps that hot, it's kind of what you expect. I was really glad that Adam's tires ran out about a lap before he got there. You know, the 5-lap tire difference did matter a bit, just with how hot it was and the fact that he started a little lighter on fuel for the run. But, you know, mine were a bit abused, but I had a big track position advantage, and that mattered more. Once he got there, he just couldn't quite get there. I figured out to tool down a little bit so that the car slid less and I could cut sharper to the bottom and make sure he had no air down there so that he would have to try something else. And at that temp, it's just too much. Nobody can really do much.
For sure.
So.
Follow up for me on that is when you guys came to when you and Seb came to get your last stop, could you have gone any longer, or were you bingo on the fuel?
No, I was bingo. I had to be real easy into my stop because I was sputtering. So I knew it was tight, but I also knew I wanted to get that one extra lap. So I actually was map 3 like the last 5 laps of the run or so, or 10 laps of that run before, just so that I could make sure I got to the pits, and made it so I knew full bore all the way to the end. I only finished the race with 0.2 gallons, so I filled it full. So I knew the situation was I was going to have to full fill, and it was going to be a little longer stop, and I need to make that extra lap. And with the heat, we're going slower, but my foot wasn't coming off the throttle, so use a little more fuel.
Yes, you do.
So yeah, thankfully, good on that number. Made it to the end. I was never concerned after the pit stop. I was always tracking just a little bit over, so we were safe. But if I hadn't made that extra lap, I knew I would have had to save on the last one. And honestly, maybe it would have been good for my tires to run a few map 3 laps to start or something. But I was hoping I could break away from Seb so that Adam wouldn't have tow, and he got to Seb quick enough and got around him quick enough that still was in tow. So, well, I say game on, but thankfully once he got close, it turns out it wasn't.
Yeah, no, it was interesting to see. We looked at it and we're like, oh, Blocker's never going to get there. And then, we started talking about some other people. I looked up and said, holy mackerel, Blocker's there. Jacob, what do you have for tonight's winner? The man with the flag, Jason Brophy.
Yeah, we've kind of saw a lot of people getting, obviously slicked out or caught out by the track conditions being as drastic as they were. Do you feel like that there was maybe something that you could have, or you brought to this race, having run, in a number of different conditions over the course of the last couple of weeks, that helped you out, try to sort out what you could do in the car to, make your number and make it through the corners without any major incidents?
The only thing it brought was I knew when I saw this weather, I did not want to go back into traffic, and I knew. So, it made me stay out, basically. I did not want to go back to, I figured it'd be about 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere in there, and then try and have to pass my way through the field. And so I stayed out. I knew I could make the number. I knew it was dead on, basically, full push from there. A little bit of save, it turns out, just with how hot it got, but, it wasn't hard to do that, and I knew basically pretty quick Adam was stuck, and so it was just a matter of trying to expand the lead as much as I could before the pit stop. And then hopefully between him and whoever else might come through, that I have enough of a gap to be able to stay in front. I was hoping I'd be broken from draft. Didn't have a great pit stop. It wasn't bad or anything. Just had to be careful into my box because of the fuel situation, because I was sputtering on the straightaway, and so lost a little bit of time just based on the exit to Seb, and he was able to keep latched on, and I was really hoping that I'd be able to break that away right there. Decent entry though. So just extra fuel, extra time in the box, and a little slow into the box. So, but yeah, I really, this weather was so much worse than anything we ran. I think fixed was probably closer to this, but that was a worse setup. We have a really good setup, especially when it's hot. This hot, still I feel like we have a really good setup relative, to most in this weather, but this hot is pretty extreme, and I don't think anyone's having a good time. You saw good cars. Hamilton buried in the pack. Yeah. Couldn't do anything. Adam was stuck in the pack. Couldn't do anything. It gets that hot. That's a management race. That's a strategy race entirely. You're just not going to make many passes.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jason. Congratulations to you and Blocker, and congratulations to everybody that's had a pretty fun couple of weeks. I know you have, I have, Adam, or you have, your team has, I know I have, and so congratulations on all of your exploits over the last couple of weeks at the Rectangle. You've got one more, right? That would be Saturday in the iRacing INDYCAR Series. Beyond that, friends, family, sponsors, shout-outs. The floor is yours. The winner tonight from the Pixel Rectangle.
I want to say thanks to Team Hype, Ty Stover, Tommy Milner for bringing us on. Obviously, Adam did some good setup changes for us before the 500, and it paid off. We didn't have to make many changes. We knew we were good, but after Elite and stuff. But he made one that I think was a pretty big gain for us, and we took that into the race. So want to say thanks to really everybody in the community. It was a great last couple of weeks. I love Indy. Every time I go through it, you kind of dread it, but man, when I get into Q week, it's such a blast. Fixed a little less so, but I still enjoy the grind of Q. So And that's pretty much it, I think.
Cool deal, Jason. Get out of here. Go celebrate with your teammates, and we'll see you. If we don't see you Saturday, I'll probably see you at the race. So, congratulations, my man. Keep going fast and having fun, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Yes, sir. That is Jason Brophy, tonight's winner from the virtual rectangle. Collins, that was an odd race. It was interesting, though. It was interesting to see the different. It was interesting to see the different strategies, the different things that played out. We had at least 3 different thoughts on how to execute this one. Ultimately, the track position proved to be king. In the hot weather, you couldn't pass no matter how good the tires were.
Yeah, track position always is a big factor in Indy, but the hotter the track gets and the harder it is to pass, even more so the fact that becomes the case. And we'll have to see how that kind of transpires even in the real race come Sunday, and we'll hope to see quite the battle come the end of the week.
Yes, indeed. And speaking about the rest of the week, tomorrow night we are off here at the P1. Or tomorrow night we're off at the excuse me, we're not off tomorrow. Tonight, I thought it was Tuesday. If you guys are looking for a nightcap, Gary Godso, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, they're going to have the ISRA Series live in just a couple of minutes' time. That crew is going to go off at 9:30 tomorrow night. The flagship broadcast 8:15. It's the P1. P1 presents the Indy Oval Series, and so you'll see the best oval racers in this car take on another one tomorrow night. That's at 8:15. Wednesday we're going to be off. Thursday and Friday, Sam Crow and I are going to have the AMA Grand National and Truck Series respectively. That's going to be at 8:20 p.m. And then Saturday we're going to have the iRacing INDYCAR Series. That's going to be live at 4 o'clock. Sunday, the greatest race in the world. And with that, I would like to extend a hearty welcome to all of the people who are not from Indiana. Welcome to my home state. I hope you find it as every bit as welcoming and hospitable as I hope it is. I want everybody to have a good time. And I do so very much looking forward to seeing most of you at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And we would like to send a special thanks to all of the first responders that are going to keep everybody safe this weekend. The police, the fire, the military that's out there, the nurses, the EMTs, all the staff in the infield hospital. They keep overheated, over-refreshed people safe. We so do very much thank you for the jobs that you do. Stay safe, everybody. Have fun. Enjoy the greatest spectacle in racing. We'll see you Wednesday next week for the Indy Open.